I'm Hannah Moldavan, Deputy Communications Director for the Democrats, and your host today, July 8th, 2025. This is the Democrats' Daily Blueprint. Trump's decision to gut the National Weather Service and FEMA is only the latest in a series of actions by the Trump administration that have actively put lives in danger, particularly in rural communities. Let's look at what that meant for Texas, where over 100 people have lost their lives. As a direct result of the Trump administration's actions, staffing shortages at the National Weather Service's San Antonio and San Angelo offices doubled. These critical positions have gone unfilled for months. Former National Weather Service officials say that the loss of experienced staff may have hampered communication with local authorities in the hours after flash flood warnings were issued overnight. Trump is implementing his Project 2025 agenda, which laid out steps to gut the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. That's the agency that oversees the National Weather Service. Project 2025 also laid out plans to defund public radio, which many rural Americans rely on to get their news and critical information about natural disasters. Here's Senator Gary Peters of Michigan explaining how these programs act as a lifeline in emergencies in rural America. To Russ Vought, the architect of Project 2025, and now Trump's director of the Office of Management and Budget during a Senate hearing.
And your rescissions package cuts to public broadcasting won't just hurt communities' access to local news and education, but as you heard, it's going to cut critical funds for rural television and radio stations like WNMU in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, WKAR in Lansing, and more, that provide emergency alert services during disasters and public safety situations. They're often the only folks that do that, particularly in rural America. Are you aware about the emergency alert function and how critical that is in rural America?
Trump and MAGA Republicans continue to brag about the dangerous funding cuts and mass firings they implemented at the direction of Elon Musk and Doge, even though these decisions disproportionately impact the communities they claim to support. And the cuts don't stop at rural communities. Yesterday, the Department of Veterans Affairs announced it's on track to slash nearly 30,000 jobs by the end of September. These cuts are targeting our veterans, those who literally put their lives on the line in service of our country. Trump's actions to threaten veterans' healthcare and VA benefits they earned is a true embarrassment to our veterans and military families. And already feeling the effects of Trump's policies, many across the country are now also preparing for the harsh impacts of his budget cuts, which passed his budget cuts in the billionaire budget that passed Congress and was signed into law by Trump on Friday. Let's take a listen to Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear, who talks about the consequences of Trump's billionaire budget.
This is the day that Donald Trump and the Republican Party are telling the American people, especially in rural America, that they don't care about us. Now, you look at what's going to happen in my state, 200,000 of my people are going to lose their health care coverage. 20,000 healthcare workers are going to lose their job. This is the Republican majority firing Americans that right now have a good job. And 35 rural hospitals may close, which is going to impact every single community they're in. What people don't know about rural hospitals is that they're typically the largest or the second largest employer in their communities. So you lose all those jobs, and every small business in rural America is going to be impacted by having fewer people, less dollars cycling through. And then when you think about worker productivity for America, it's going to take a nosedive because now you got to drive 2 hours to go see a doctor, not just for your appointment, but for your kids and your parents. And when your parent or grandparent gets kicked off Medicaid because they did not check a box, you're going to have to bring them into your own home, take time off of work, and ultimately pay for their medical expenses out of pocket. This is just crazy. It's going to hit Democrats, Republicans, independents. It's going to hammer the U.S. economy. This is the worst bill I've seen in my lifetime.
The worst bill in his lifetime. And it's not only Kentucky. Across the country, healthcare costs are set to skyrocket. Trump's billionaire budget lets the Affordable Care Act credits expire, meaning that this year, 20 million Americans are likely to see major increases in their healthcare premiums. It's not a matter of when, but how much. And if you thought that was bad, it gets worse, especially for rural Americans. Yesterday, we noted that a Nebraska clinic is already set to close because of the Medicaid cuts in Trump's billionaire budget. Now in North Carolina, a similar situation is unfolding. The only hospital in Martin County, North Carolina, which the town has been trying to reopen, is likely doomed for permanent closure because of Trump's cuts to Medicaid. For residents, the next closest hospital is a 30-minute drive away. Those 30 minutes could be a matter of life or death. But Democrats are fighting back. North Carolina Governor Josh Stein took steps to mitigate the impact of Trump's federal cuts by strengthening North Carolina's Medicaid program, providing coverage for a year for women who have just given birth, making telehealth more accessible, and launching a new statewide plan for those served by the child welfare system. But hospital closures aren't the only devastating impacts for rural communities. Cuts to food assistance programs like SNAP are likely to begin this year, at a time when food banks are already struggling to meet an increase in demand. Families can expect to potentially get kicked off SNAP within months after Trump's budget goes into effect. Now, let's be clear, Republicans knew this when they voted for the budget bill, and now it's their very own constituents who are suffering the consequences. Which is why we want you to join us in letting Trump and Republicans know that they can't and won't get away with voting for their awful bill. We're launching Organizing Summer nationwide to come to you with trainings, voter registration drives, and community events to help you hold Republicans in your area accountable for voting for this horrible bill. If you're interested in volunteering, visit our website at democrats.org/take-action. And thank you for joining us today for this episode of the Daily Blueprint. We'll be with you right here every day at 10 a.m. Eastern on the DNC's YouTube page. Until tomorrow.